What's up, everyone? We're back for a second podcast of the day. It's the annual Over and Under podcast. How many points is Giannis going to score this year? How many games are the Bucks going to win? How many starts is Donte DiVincenzo is going to have? And how many mean mugs is Giannis going to dish out this season? I've got myself in trouble because now I'm going to have a notepad and a pen and track the mean mugs. But anyway, we're doing it. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can listen to me and see me on this show daily and find my words over at ESPN and NBA Australia. And joining me, the founder of BrewHoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. And we are here for the annual Over and Under podcast. This is my third time doing this. Frank's done many more. I had people on Twitter asking when it was going to come. We've left it right until opening night. Frank told me I need to see some basketball. I need to see some basketball first before I do these over and unders. I'm not sure what he's actually taken away from preseason basketball, because anyone that listens to this show regularly hears him say that he's not taking anything from preseason basketball. So I think it was just a cop-out. But anyway, whatever. We're going to get into it. The over and unders. And Frank, we always start with the win total. So let's just cut to the chase. I think if you go to betonline.ag, sponsors of the podcast, you'll see the Bucks are at 54.5. I think that's weak. I'm not going 54.5. I want to make this a challenge for you, Frank. I'm going 55.5 over or under.
So I was on the Dunked On season outlook pod for the Bucks like a week or two ago, and on that one the over under Nate was using was 53.5, and I said over but just barely, and I think I said like 54. So I feel like I feel like I have a guess to which direction you're gonna go. I will play the the Eeyore, the I don't want to say the pessimist because that's still a crap load of wins, but I will say I'll play the slightly more conservative card and say, 54 wins. Are the Bucks gonna, play super hard? I mean, are they gonna like go for the number one seed? Are they going to, prioritize regular season wins when they finally didn't do that last year and they won a championship? So I'll play the, Bucks are really good, but the East is deeper. The league, I think, is better. So I don't think there are going to be quite as many. They may actually lose a game before the last day of the season in the Central Division this year, which last year, it wasn't until the last game against Chicago when they didn't play anybody that they actually lost the game to a Central Division opponent. So I'll say that they go slight under. I think there's absolutely a case for going over. And Kane, I'm going to guess that you're going to make that case.
Yeah, but I will say this. I remember last year we did this same question and it was about the same. It was about 54.5 and I think we were both under. I'll go over. We'll have some differences here. I think last year we were too similar. So we need to mix this up a little bit. I'll go over. I was trying to, and this is poor planning on my part, I was trying to frantically figure out what their pace was last year. But the case for them having a higher win total this year is, and I don't think they're going to get to 60, for instance. I did a poll on the Locked On Bucks YouTube page the other day. The majority of the votes were in the 55 to 59 range. And then there was actually quite a healthy percentage for 60 plus. And I've seen this from national podcasts that I've listened to, that people seem to be assuming that the Bucks are just going to destroy the league this year. I think that we've seen enough of this team to understand that they're going to keep minute totals relatively under control. That's the way Bud likes to coach. We think that they're going to rest as well. Giannis, I think, you could expect that he'll probably be around the 70-game mark. Of course, I mean, we hope that there's no injury that keeps him out further, but he has historically taken some back-to-backs off, or the knee soreness will flare up and he'll miss a few games here or there. I think they're going to take care of these guys. I think they have a really tough start to the season, and I honestly think that they might lose a few games early. Obviously, they go on the road, a heavy road schedule, and then it turns for them. But I do think, from what we've seen in preseason from this team, even without Donte DiVincenzo in the lineup, you slot in Grayson Allen, Giannis comes out and, like he always does, but he just looks absolutely unbelievable. And I just think there's a level of consistency you can expect from this team that they're going to just rack up wins. And it might not necessarily mean they're playing their best basketball, but they're just going to win. I just think they're one of the more predictable teams around the league in terms of consistently what they're going to produce. So I think the other piece is perhaps they did a lot of their experimenting or a lot of their figuring it out playing together with Drew Holiday and Giannis and Chris as well. So I think there'll be a level of comfort there as well. So I'll take the over, but I don't think they're over 60. I think it falls somewhere in that I can't say 55, so 56 to 59 range.
I mean, I think people maybe sort of overlook it, but I mean, there was a lot of turnover, relatively speaking, for them last year, and obviously the focus was on Drew Holiday coming in. But you look at other pieces there. I mean, bringing in DJ Augustine to replace George Hill after a couple of years. You had Robin Lopez, Ursan, a pretty stable cast of kind of backup big men, and you switch that to Bobby Portis, which obviously worked out. But that came with some compromises, especially on the defensive end, and just obviously a number of kind of moving parts on the roster last year, and then more so over the course of the season. And that's the joke of this, right? Like PJ Tucker played such a huge role in the playoffs. I mean, they were bad with with him on the court in the regular season. Like the defense was terrible with PJ Tucker after he came over for the trade, but he was hurt, barely played. So I think it's kind of like push and pull. I think the other thing worth mentioning, they were better by point differential than their record last year suggested. They were a 48 win team on point differential. 48 out of 72. That's about, that's 2/3, right? Not about, that is 2/3 of your wins. So if you say an 82 game schedule, if you play 81 games, that's 54 and 27. So that takes you right to, that 54, 55 win range just right there based on what their point differential was last year. And I think we're going to talk about like the defense and some things that may improve. So I think there's a good case, obviously, for them going over, for them being, hopefully the best team in the league in the regular season. But the other piece too is I think last year, I mean, they had pretty good injury luck last year. I mean, people made a big deal about Drew Holiday and kind of the, when he was out with COVID, they had that 5-game losing streak. But by and large, I mean, again, that was not great. But yeah, Giannis missed some games. Chris Middleton, the guys didn't play 82, but it was mostly the Bucks choosing to rest those guys. Brook Lopez, as he always has in Milwaukee, played, was pretty much available every night. So we really didn't have to see the Bucks cope with, extended periods of missing one of their star players, or missing multiple guys at once that in really meaningful ways. So again, you hope that holds true again this season. But I mean, look how things are shaping up here at the beginning of the regular season right away, right? Thankfully, you have your big three healthy. Knock on wood, that continues. But you're starting the season with, Sandro Mamukalashvili likely in the big man rotation to start the season due to injuries to Bobby Portis and Shemi Ojale. So we'll see. I think injuries are obviously always a huge variable, and that's obviously something that's hard to account for.
Speaking of injuries, let's go to Donte DiVincenzo. Starts over or under 40.5. So, of course, you take the over. You're guessing he's going to start in half of the regular season games. Difficult to tell exactly when he's going to come back or how many games he's going to miss. But I guess the secondary piece of this that can be difficult to project, and maybe it'll give us a bit of a sign of how high you are on Grayson Allen. Does he get the starting role back? This is a guy that's been a career sixth man before he came to the Bucks, but spent a lot of time coming off the bench. It's not a role that's unfamiliar to him, but by the same token, we spent some time talking about the Grayson Allen extension. He wants to have a good year this year. He wants to earn some money.
Yeah, I'll have to take the under. And two things at play here. One, I'm probably more pessimistic on when he's actually going to be back than maybe at least the conventional wisdom was during the summer, right? I think there was a lot of, especially national media people who were just like, "Oh, Donte DiVincenzo is coming back," and then it's like, we'll see when he's coming back, right? And we still don't have any sort of definitive timeline for it. I just have this sense that it's probably closer to the All-Star break than it is closer to Thanksgiving. But I don't know. I mean, we really don't know, and that has all sorts of implications for the Bucks in terms of if he's coming back that late in the season, certainly, trades are much harder to pull off if you were looking to make a move that potentially involved Dante, especially now that you've signed Grayson Allen. And just, again, how you work him back into the rotation. I mean, I expect he'll get a decent amount of time to get ready and get reintegrated ahead of the playoffs. But I have to go under just because A, I think he's going to be out a while. And then B, again, I think Grayson Allen's going to fit in very well with the starters. And I don't know. I mean, yes, there's the whole thing. You don't lose your starting position due to injury. I mean, that's like some people view that and put stock in that philosophy. But I think Dante was always a question whether he was actually better off starting or coming off the bench anyway. And I think with this group, this team, I, I mean, if Grayson Allen's playing well and the team's playing well, does Donte DiVincenzo has some birthright claim on a starting position? I don't think he does, and I think he's shown obviously especially in his second season that he could play really well and be really good in that bench role. And I think, to be honest, I think that was one of the big reasons the Bucks were so good is that they had a guy like Dante coming off the bench and not just with the starting group. So I'll take the under. I don't know what it's most likely to be. If you told me he didn't start at all this year, I wouldn't be shocked. But I just don't think he's gonna, come back that quickly, and I don't think he's gonna come back and immediately go back into the starting five. Hey, if he's healthy and looking great, I'm fine with it. But that's my sense of it.
Yeah, I remember back to his rookie season, there were some games where he did really provide that spark off the bench because the way that he defends and all the deflections and steals and different things that he creates, he can create that energy. So it could add a different element to this team. I would have to take the under as well. I mean, if you guess that he misses the first 15 to 20 games, you're nearly there. And then maybe a 5 to 10 run-in situation before he was back in the starting lineup and you're almost at the 41. So hard to take the over there. 3-point shooting. We had a listener yesterday ask the question, what's going on with the 3-point shooting with this team? I still have the numbers here in front of me. So last year in the regular season, 38.9%. That dropped to 35 in the postseason. They are at 35.8% in the preseason. Of course, we're playing a few games here, different lineups. You can't read too much into it. But I've put the over and under for the team 3-point percentage at 38.5. So you add Grayson Allen, you lose Bryn Forbes that shot the ball really, really well. Bobby Portis last year gave you 48%. Is that going to be the same? Is George Hill going to walk into the lineup and lead the league in 3-point percentage again? So there are some moving pieces that are going to contribute to this 3-point percentage here. And of course, the obvious one is Giannis now going to keep up his 40+% 3-point shooting through the regular season, Frank.
I mean, I would take the under simply because I look at the percentage of the guys last year, and it just felt like too many of those guys were at the high end of where you would expect them to be. I mean, Chris shoots 41%. Of course, Chris could very well shoot 41% again. We've seen him up in that 40 to 40+% range a number of times. But Drew Holiday was at 39.2%. Certainly, after watching the playoffs, I don't feel as bullish on 39.2% for a second straight year. Dante all the way up to 38%. Brook Lopez at 34%. Really, I mean, again, you could say like, well, he could be better, but I mean, that's pretty much right around his career numbers. And Pat Connaughton, who really didn't shoot the ball as well in previous years, was up at 37%, which I think is again a really good number for him to be at. And of course, then you look at probably the two most crooked numbers. Bryn Forbes at 45%. Do I think Bryn Forbes, if he had been retained, would shoot 45% again? Probably not. But it's certainly, if you're looking at Grayson Allen as a Bryn Forbes pseudo replacement, then that's going to be a really high bar for him to hit. I think, Grayson can absolutely hit 40%. As you mentioned, I mean, he's 39, 40% the last 2 years. But that's a really high bar on 5 shots, 5 3-pointers a game. And then Bobby Portis, far lower volume at only 2.4 per game, but I mean, he was at 47%. So I think Bobby can be a 40% 3-point shooter for sure. He's been a good 3-point shooter previously, but 47%, that is just a really big number. And I mean, even Jeff Teague was at 38.5%. DJ Augustine was 38%. PJ Tucker was at 39% during the regular season on very limited volumes, granted. But just a lot of guys shot the ball well. And so, even if you believe in Grayson Allen as a 3-point shooter, even if you think Shemi Ojeleye is going to be a better 3-point shooter, than PJ Tucker would have been, Again, just the bar is very high. So I feel like I'd have to go under here. And again, I hope they don't get too close to their to their playoff shooting numbers. But really, the one big variable is, can Giannis be better, or can he just shoot less, right? Because if he's taking 4 threes a game at 30%, certainly the way he was shooting here in these last couple preseason games, it seems like he's going to continue to at least try to put up 2-3 a game. But even if he just kind of did what he did at times, during the last couple rounds of the playoffs where he sort of just reined that in, that alone, just by not shooting as many, could certainly help your percentage as well.
Yeah, the other big variable, no crowds, not no crowds, but no
Yes,
crowds.
absolutely.
No crowds was the variable last year. So we've seen teams shooting the shit out of the ball, really. I mean, let's be honest. And, that 38.9% is a high percentage. The only other note before we move on, when it comes to Pat Connaughton, you never know. Maybe this is a guy that's improved, because he shot in the sort of mid to high 30s last year during the regular season. He was one of the only guys that carried it through to the postseason. He was 39% in the postseason, hit some big shots during the regular season last year, extended that range, shooting those deep threes, but hitting a pretty good percentage of them. So I'm curious, actually, just to see where Pat lands this year. Defensively, last year, I believe they were 10th in the regular season. Is that what you told me, Frank? 10th?
Yeah, I think right around 10th, right? And it depends a little bit on, which metric you use, but I think 10th is where most of the different calculations had them as far as defensive rating.
Yeah, I've got defensive ranking there on the screen here on YouTube, but defensive rating. So 7.5, I've got the over and under. So are they going to be a top 7 defense? I'm going to lean that they're not. I think they might fall in that 8, 9, 10, 11 range again. And it doesn't really concern me for what they're going to be able to produce in the playoffs, because I think individually, when you have Brook Lopez, you have Giannis, you have Drew Holiday, clearly they've got good defenders. Who knows who's on the roster, if they have another influential trade or move? We don't really know about that. But I just think that if you watch the Bucks in the postseason last year and the intensity that they defended at, and you still think that you can watch a random regular season game and have huge concerns about individual defense, I think we all learned the lesson last year. We watched this team, and they had a lot of learning to do last year. Clearly, switching was something that was very foreign to these guys as a group. So I think in some ways, maybe the communication will be better. Maybe the breakdowns will be fewer. But I just think that this team overall mentally understands, you go up a notch in the postseason, I'm not sure if they're going to be out there defending like maniacs 82 games of the regular season. I think their defense will just be pretty good during the regular season.
Yeah, I think I'll take the under. I'll take the positive. I'll say the better.
Figure it out. Yeah.
I'll say better. It's kind of funny because I was gonna say, oh well, being injured and missing Bobby Portis and Shemi Ojeleye to start the season is gonna hurt you. Defensively, you're really thin up front. I guess the flip side argument would be, well, they were terrible when Bobby was on the floor, especially without either Giannis or Brook last year. But I think again, a couple factors here. I think the Bucks from opponent 3-point percentage. You rightly brought up the lack of crowds being something that probably juiced the Bucks' own 3-point percentage a fair bit, but I think it also impacted their opponent 3-point percentage. I think they were, I want to say, second worst in the league in terms of opponent 3-point percentage. They gave up just a crazy corner 3 percentage, 44% opponent corner 3 percentage, which was the worst in the league. So I think those numbers are just by luck of the draw are bound to be better than they were last year. And I think that's obviously the huge variable that really worked against them last year. And they were not the only team. I mean, the interesting thing we saw in 1920 was that a bunch of the teams that were near the top of the defensive ratings were teams that basically, like the Bucks, had sort of said, you know what, we'll give up 3-point shots, but we're going to take away all the other stuff from you. And interestingly, last year that strategy was not as successful, right? And the Bucks were an example, but there were a number of other teams that were near the top that fell off, and pretty notably as well. I mean, the Raptors maybe are the best example, a team that gave up the most 3-pointers and gave up a lot of corner threes and got away with it in 1920, and then last year not so much. So I think with crowds back, I think that'll moderate some of that 3-point shooting by opponents. I think that will help the Bucks more than a lot of other teams because of just the volume of 3-point shooters, and then also the volume of 3-point shooting they give up. And again, just also, I mean, they don't give up a ton of corner threes as is. I mean, as much as they give up a lot of threes, I don't think it's like a reckless type thing. So I think they'll be better. I think we'll see the other numbers for the Bucks last year were very stable. They're really good at preventing free throws. They don't really foul a whole lot. They're very good at taking away the rim. Swapping Portis in for Robin Lopez, not surprisingly, really hurt their rim defense. But I think there was also some stuff going on that Brook and Giannis, their defensive field goal percentage allowed at the basket was notably worse last year than it was the year before. And I think when Giannis's number goes south like that, you could say Brook is he losing a step. I think with the fact that it happened with Giannis as well probably says that maybe some different things going on. And again, I think there was a lot of experimentation happening last year. I don't think they really, for the first half of the season, it seemed like they really didn't know when Drew Holiday was switching and not switching. And obviously they got, I think, a lot more comfort and a lot more reps in terms of, just some of the common sense switching. Because a lot of times we talk about switching and it's just like this like binary thing, but it can mean very different things, right? I think mostly you think of it in terms of, are you switching in a 1-5 pick and roll? And obviously they're not going to switch Brook Lopez in 1-5 pick and rolls very much, but that doesn't mean they can't switch a lot of other actions, especially with Giannis, Drew, and Chris Middleton. Like if there's, wing actions, off the ball type stuff, the fact that you can more liberally switch those, which I think they'll continue to do, I think again is just common sense type stuff. And again, it's not something that they did all of last year, but they kind of grew into that over the course of the season. So I'll play the optimist here and think they'll be a little bit better defensively. But again, there could be some noise in that. And again, maybe they'll only show it when it really matters in the playoffs, but I'll be an optimist for a change here.
And I think they'll turn it up on certain nights. I guarantee you there's going to be nights where Bucks Twitter is ready to explode because some scrub team has just gone off and hit a bunch of threes on them. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. So as we wrap this up, a couple of Giannis ones to tidy up really a bumper night of podcasting for me and you, Frank. So here we go. This one's just for you. You're going to love this. Giannis free throw percentage, over or under 71.5%. Now, I went with that figure because, quite honestly, if you look at his percentages across the course of his career, this is a mark that he's topped a number of times. I know it sounds crazy to say that, but you go back to 2015, he was at 74%, 2016, 72, 2017, 77. Oh, my goodness. Imagine 77, Frank. 2018, 76, 2019, 73, and then it was only... he had the massive dip, but obviously disastrous Eastern Conference Finals. Came back the next year, was a mess. 63% in the regular season, but last year he got it up to 68.5. The 17 for 19 in Game 6 of the Finals. Is he going to get up above 71.5? I'm going to say yes.
I'm kind of torn because on the one hand, it's like nothing would make me happier in terms of like individual random individual stats than for Giannis to actually become or return to being a more consistent free throw shooter. And again, his struggles, he has always been worse in the playoffs than he is during the regular season. So as much as we talk about mechanics and him tweaking this or that, going to the shortener, cheating, etc., I think all indications are that it's largely a psychological thing, that something, basically when he's under the greater pressure of the playoffs, that again, it's not like he's changing his style every year when he gets to the playoffs, and that makes him worse. So I think that's largely a mental thing. Obviously, I think his headspace is probably in a pretty good place these days, having not only won an NBA championship, but having done it by being awesome at the free throw line. I think it's interesting and in a way encouraging that he wasn't afraid to kind of go to that shorter routine, even though obviously it quote unquote worked in Game 6 of the NBA Finals to go with that.
Can I just say there was one really, really unfortunate man in the crowd the other night when the Bucks were playing at home, and he was like, 1, 2, and it's like, and nobody told him that he's shooting on 6 now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but he couldn't get past 5 or whatever it is. It was kind of weird. Maybe it was the
exactly.
The dollar counting, the money counting guy from Phoenix. Wonder, we talk about your all-time backfires, but yeah. In the spirit of us trying to differ a little bit, since you went positive, I'll play the pessimist. 71.5 is, again, he ended up shooting it pretty well, especially, from like basically January on last year and got all the way up to 69%, which a lot of people forgot by the time the playoffs rolled down and he started struggling again. It's kind of weird. It always bugs me when people start talking about him and cause like comparing him to Shaq and all this. And it's like, dude, first off, he was 69% during the regular season. Like that's better, way better than Shaq ever was in a regular season. And he's been way better in his career overall, and certainly in individual seasons than he was last season. On top of that, like this is not a guy who is incapable of making free throws. It's just something that he has obviously struggled with for extended periods at times these last few years. And for the sake of the Bucks repeating as champions, you obviously hope that he kind of figures it out. But again, 71.5, that's maybe a little high for me to easily throw on my optimist hat. So I'll go a little bit under, but I mean, I don't think he's going to be a 55% free throw shooter, but again, maybe he'll be more in that high 60s range. And nothing would make me happier than being wrong.
Yeah, so just last year, as you pointed to, brutal start. 62% in December, 58% in January, which I know we were having a number of conversations about at that point, just wondering where he was going to end up. Then all of a sudden, up to 75% in February, 76% in March, and then even April, May, to the end of the regular season, he was at 69% for both of those months. And honestly, 69 sounds nice. We would take it. So as we wrap this up, we don't need to give too much of an answer here. Giannis mean mugs 19.5. I'm taking the over. This guy's been mean mugging in preseason, Frank. I've signed myself up to count these mean mugs. I'm going over.
So let me ask you a question about interpretation of somebody being a mean mug. I think Bucks fans can all imagine and they have in their mind's eye the value at the end of Game 5 where Giannis throws it down and then kind of poses after he puts it down and Chris Paul fouls him. Was that a mean mug? In your official counting, would that have counted as a mean mug? You can picture it.
I think it would have. I think it would have counted. Let me just mean mug / stare 19.5. It's included. I've just changed the graphic. We're including stares in the mean mug count.
I guess I probably have to go over. I mean, if he plays 70 games, that means he's doing it like once every 3 or 4 games. I feel like you get a mean mug like every other game at least. But I don't know. Maybe this may be one of those things where it's like he does it way less than we all perceive him to do it. So yeah, I think maybe he'll do it, especially if you're counting stares. If you're counting stares, then I feel a little bit better about it because like the full like mean mug where he's like jutting out his lower jaw, like if we were saying that the lower jaw has to go in front of the upper jaw and like really kind of getting our protractors, then I don't know, maybe I'd take the under. But I guess, I mean, it's gonna be a fun year for Giannis, and he's got, let's just say he's got the authority, the moral high ground to mean mug, stare, talk shit. He can do pretty much whatever he wants this year. He's the MVP, Finals MVP, the champ. He dropped the 50 piece in Game 6. It's his world. We're just living in it. So yeah, mean mug, stare all you want, Giannis. No one can talk back to you at this point.
And if you wanted any incentive to jump on YouTube and subscribe, I think Frank did his version of the mean mug. So if you want to check that out, I would highly recommend it. Now, Frank, I'm wrapping this podcast up at the 30-minute mark. We're currently at 28 minutes and 50 seconds. So that's me telling you that this has to be a very quick one-word answer because I know this topic is very close to your heart. I know this is something that you've been really hoping for year after year after year, and Giannis has flirted with it. Over and under 29.9 points. Is this man going to average 30 points this year and you're down to 50 seconds?
He could certainly do it. I think he's going to play, 33. I don't think he's going to play 30 minutes a game. I think he'll play 32, 33 minutes a game. I don't think he's going to finish 30, though. 30 is such a big number, and especially with the depth they have on this team and the number of shooters. I don't think he's going to get 30. But, man, I would 30 points on 73.8% free throw shooting. Whew, Now you're cooking with gas, Kane. That would be something.
Well, I voted or guessed that the free throw percentage was going to be over, which by virtue means I think he's going to sneak in a few extra points. I think he's going over. Never bet against Giannis. You did twice in this podcast. We'll see where we land at the end of the season. But of course, the over and unders is always fun. If you missed our podcast, we've done 2 today, one on Grayson Allen, the contract extension, talked a little bit of Bucks Nets as well. So make sure you check out both of those before the season opener. Opening night is here. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be back after Bucks and Nets. So for Frank and myself, enjoy the game. This basketball's back.